if you do not have social connection with your team, with your boss, with your subordinates, your body does not feel safe at all. Like you cannot feel safe with people around you that you don't know. The way our minds are wired is that we assume everybody is an enemy until we're proven otherwise. This is like a survival mechanism from like thousands of years ago. So what StrengthsFinder in a corporate environment does, it helps you to sit there in a group and go, oh, okay, so this is who I am, and that is who they are, and that is okay. They are different to me. Honestly, it's light bulb moments are going off throughout the thing, because you've got people there that don't value themselves at all, and they're like, oh yeah, my strengths are just this and this, and then you've got people on the same table going, that's what we love about you.
Welcome to You've Got Game, the podcast that's all about playing to win in life. I'm your host, Marisa Kamal, and I'm thrilled to be your guide on this journey. On this show, I'll be talking to a range of guests who've faced adversity head on and come out on top. We'll be diving into their stories, uncovering the secrets of how they overcame their challenges, and learning from their hard-won wisdom. From entrepreneurs to artists, athletes to activists, our guests have one thing in common: they've got game. So come along for the ride as we explore the strategies, mindsets, and habits of those who are thriving against all odds. Are you ready to play? Let's do this.
Hi, Gemma. Welcome to my podcast, You've Got Game. You're my first guest, actually. So the first episode was all about me, and I'm delighted that I'm now passing it over to you, and I'm no longer in the spotlight. So thank you so much for joining me. This is Gemma McFall. She's a pain specialist. And when we first met, I was completely compelled by your story. So can you give the listeners, just in a nutshell, just tell us about you and your journey?
Yeah, thanks, Marissa. I'm honored to be your first guest. So yeah, in a nutshell, and this really is a nutshell, I was in the corporate world. I was HR director, and many years of working very hard, and my body eventually gave in. I had back pain, which progressively got worse and worse and worse, until the point of injections in my spine, physio, osteopaths, and so on and so on, waiting for surgery. And at this point, it was really bad, lying on the floor, not able to do anything, not able to pick the kids up. And at that point, I discovered the mind-body approach to healing. And I realized that actually the pain that I was experiencing, whilst it was absolutely 100% real pain, it was all to do with repressed emotions, stress, my personality type. There was a lot of things that was causing the pain. So that is how I got rid of the pain, through following the mind-body approach. And now that's what I do for other people. That is a nutshell. That was the fastest I could have done it.
We'll dig into that. But it's incredibly intriguing. And from my own personal experience, I think we spoke about it before, I had a stressful period, which I explained in the last episode. But I went to an osteo with a bad back, and he described it as I physically had like stress wrapped around my spine.
Yeah, I love that. That's exactly, yeah. And I felt like I had electricity shooting up and down my legs, and like you can, yeah, it's just, it's awful. It's such a horrible feeling.
Yeah, and before having personally experienced that, I wouldn't have felt, that I could control this sort of thing by my mind, or that stress would manifest in that way. It's incredible, really.
Yeah, and actually, the pain went on for like 10 years. And during those 10 years, if you'd have approached me in the corporate world, whilst I had back pain and said, I think maybe it's due to stress, I'd be like, shut up. I'd be like, I'm not stressed. I genuinely didn't feel stressed, but my body it had the signs, But because we've grown up in this Western medical model, it's a lot easier to go, no, my doctor said it's physical. It says on the MRI scan, this, and this. So therefore, I need this, and this treatments to get rid of it. I wish I knew what I knew now earlier, honestly.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's so crazy that we've been conditioned in that way in the Western world. Can you tell me, just give us a bit more about what, in terms of this mind-body approach, how does that work?
Yeah, so basically pain is created through neural pathways, right? So just in the same way we learn to ride a bicycle, a neural pathway is established for the bike riding, and once it's there, we never ever forget how to ride a bike. So pain is the same. Once we've experienced pain, the neural pathway is established, and for most people, they'll heal and get better and carry on with life. But for some people, the pain just persists and persists and persists. And once it's been there for more than 3 months, it's considered chronic pain. And the reason for some people and not others, the main telltale signs, it's a mind-body symptom, is either we have certain personality types that are really stress-inducing, like highly empathetic, high achiever, really responsible, analytical, overthinker, perfectionist, people pleaser, you know, like I probably tick most of those boxes. Or it's to do with childhood stress or trauma as a child. So these things play a part in how our nervous system is trying to protect us. So basically, your brain says, you see some kind of threat, like a tiger is going to eat you or chase you, and your body goes, fight, flight, or freeze. And that makes sense. And so we need the pain signal. But pain, whether it's physical or emotional, is exactly the same pathways in our brain. And so an emotional threat these days would be like mortgage payments, or a boss that you don't get on with, or children that are crying, you know. These types of things actually are a real threat. So if our nervous system is not working as it should, let's say, it keeps triggering this kind of fear response, and that's what keeps these neural pathways established, if that makes sense. And the stronger that pain pathway gets, the harder it is to get out of it. But the good news is the fact that it's a neural pathway, because of neuroplasticity, we know we can change it. So yeah, does that make sense?
That does make sense. Yeah, no, it does make sense. It's interesting to view it that way, but you know, if I think about the sorts of things that have stressed me out and reasons why I might have been, for example, off work as a result, are very relevant to what you've discussed. In terms of your approach, how do you reprogram those neural pathways?
Yeah. So, well, the first part is education. You know, what we're talking about today, I honestly, truly believe should be taught in schools. Like, it's science. This is not a woo-woo thing. This is science-based research. We know there's direct correlations between childhood stress and adults that have trauma. Adults that have pain. You know, we know how neural pathways work, but sadly, it's not being taught to doctors in medical school, and so it's not being passed down. It takes 20 years for research like this to be discovered before it actually gets down to people. So the very first thing I do is education, like teaching people why you have pain. You know, there's different ways to tell if your pain is we call it mind-body or neuroplastic pain, depending on how fancy you want to be. But there's a quiz I take people through, asking about personality types, things that happened to them as a child. And then we talk about the physical thing they can see on the MRI scan. And I teach them how, like, just because you can see this on a scan doesn't mean that's causing your pain. And again, there's so many research studies that show, you know, they put a bunch of people with zero pain through an MRI scan, and more than half of them come back with some kind of degenerative disc disease. You know, like it's normal to have an abnormal MRI scan. It's just part of aging. But, you know, at no point would your doctor ever mention that to you. They would just be like, oh, look, I can see this, therefore that's why you have the pain. And then that again reestablishes that pain pathway. So the first part is definitely education. And then from there, we start looking at personality and how can we use our personality to make us stronger and to stop that stress response. Why do certain people and certain situations trigger us? And that's where I use Gallup strengths. And I know you'll definitely want to dig into that more. And then the third piece, which not everybody needs, is the past. You know, did something happen to you in the past? And if it did, what emotional weight is that carrying today? And then we start to see how we can unpick that and work through some of that childhood stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you. And I know recently we discussed, I was having some pain in my ankle, and you just gave me kind of 3 quick tips, or 2 or 3 quick tips as to what I could do to stop it from hurting. And actually it worked. Can you just give the listeners just a flavour of I mean, mine was obviously a very basic, quick case. But can you just sort of give some quick tips?
Yeah, I mean, now you've put me on the spot because I can't remember what tips I gave you. But for example,
you know it inside out.
Yeah, once because before I gave you these tips, we'd also just been talking about the whole mind-body stuff, and I'd taught you basically that whatever is in your ankle is most likely a mind-body condition. We'd already talked about your personality and this, that, and the other, and you'd also said to me that the pain comes and goes. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not there. Maybe mornings it's worse, or maybe evenings it's worse. This is really strong evidence that it's a mind-body condition if it comes and goes. So I think what I said to you was, when you feel the pain, don't fear the pain, you know, just almost not smile, because smile's the wrong kind of thing, but like just be like, oh, it's a mind-body condition, because you've got to start rewiring that pathway as soon as possible. And what most people do is they stop activity. So for me, I stopped running, I stopped everything. Anything that could have jarred my back, I stopped doing. Over the course of 10 years, I'd rearranged everything in my house to make it on waist level. So I never needed to bend, I never needed to stretch. So I'd reduced my mobility down to like nothing. But the advice I would give to someone now is, once you know it's a mind-body condition, the first thing we need to be doing is getting you back moving again. So bending when you need to bend, but without the fear, you know. So that's a physical tip. And then the other things would be, you know, write down what is going on for you. Like, why today is your knee hurting, or your ankle, or your back, but not physically, like emotionally, what's happening at work, at home, you know. So that's 2 things. Was there something else I gave you? Did I give you something else that you're thinking of? I can't remember.
No, that was it actually. And I think you referenced, you know, as it starts to hurt, in a very British way, just get yourself a cup of tea and just acknowledge that it's happened, which, like, you know, really resonated with me, because obviously I'm English and I love tea. So but it actually just really helped.
Yeah, because if you didn't do that, what would typically happen is you feel the ankle pain, and then you go, oh gosh, the ankle pain, and then that sends a negative signal that there's something wrong with your ankle, and then very, very quickly we're in what's called the pain fear cycle. The more we feel pain, the more fear we have, and the more fear we have, the more pain that comes. And it's very difficult to get out of that. So you've got to make a conscious choice when you feel the pain not to be scared of it. But the only way to not be scared of it is if you fully understand the mind-body stuff, and then you're like, yes, this is me, 100%. Yeah. And then people can heal. Some people even heal from just literally understanding. There'll be people listening to this that listen, and they'll be like, oh, this makes so much sense. And something will just click and the pain will go.
Yeah, well, it's worked for me. It's twinging a little bit, but I took the advice very literally and thought, okay, I'm gonna do this, and it's actually worked, because it was starting to move from my ankle into my knees, and it must just be stress. So if it hurts, I just think, right, carry on. And you know, I'd switched all my exercise to just swimming, and then after our discussion, I've gone back to like actual gym classes. I'm not jumping around, but I'm doing everything else, and it's really making a big difference. And it beats being with crutches for 3 weeks. So after an operation,
you were 1 week away from surgery. So I stopped having surgery. Yay!
Yeah, exactly that. So I'm going to play it by ear, but I'm being pestered by the doctor, as you would expect here. But it's it's really good. I've been amazed. So thank you.
Fantastic.
Oh, so can you talk to me about, as you know, I've just qualified to be a Gallup Strengths Finder coach. My expertise is more within the corporate environment, but I found the whole process fascinating, and how individuals, if you understand your strengths, you can really harness those, double down to become better and more effective at whatever it is that you want to do. So can you talk to me about how you bring that? You're very experienced in this space, actually. Can you talk to me how you bring a client's strengths into your practice and how that works?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually was already a Gallup Strengths coach before I pivoted into chronic pain. So I could see how powerful the tool was. So the first thing I do with clients always is to do the Gallup Strengths assessment with them. Because when you've had chronic pain, stress, or anxiety for a number of weeks or months, very quickly, not very quickly actually, over a period of time, we lose our personality. We forget who we are. We get defined by the pain. For example, with me, I would meet friends and they'd be like, how's your back? Like, that would be the first thing they would ask me, how's your back? And then we'd have a whole conversation about my back and, I'm more than just my back, But of course, a lot of things, you stop doing so many things, you stop believing in yourself, and you feel it's exhausting chronic pain. So doing Strengths Finder gives people a foundation right off the bat of like, oh, this is who I am. So they've got the report. I get them mainly to focus on the top 5 strengths, and they're like, oh, I have these amazing strengths. I just thought everybody was like that. And I'm like, no, not everybody is like that. You are unique. You are special. You are different. And the first few sessions, I love that moment when people are like, oh, like that's me. Like, I never realized. And then you can see the confidence coming. That's always where I start, the positive. And then we move on to like the stress triggers. So, I mean, maybe I can give you an example of the strength. So like empathy, let's say, somebody would see they have empathy and they'd be like, oh, I didn't realize that was the strength. And I'm like, yeah, because it's not measured at school, is it? You don't do an exam in empathy. And so then they realize they do have something that they bring to the table, whether it's at work or their family or whatever. But we then move on to how those same strengths might be causing stress or repressed emotions, or how they're not serving them as much. Let's take empathy as an example. If you have empathy in your top 5 strengths, it's great because you can use it to empathize with people. But the downside is that you might take on everyone else's emotions very, very easily. People with empathy have the ability to read the room and soak up everything that everybody else is thinking, which you then take home with you, and then that goes inside and then most likely causes the stress response in your body to cause more pain. That's just one example. We could speak for hours and hours on all the different strengths, but I help people to see, which situations would drain them like that, or which certain people might clash with them and therefore cause stress.
Amazing. Yeah, it makes sense. I think from my takeaway from the course was like, I actually, similar to what you just said, and some of the strengths that I have, or some of my lesser strengths particularly, I was kind of like, why would anybody like that? And then it was just really, I guess, powerful to see, if you bring a collective together of different strengths, how powerful that could be together. For example, mine generally are focused around influencing and communication, positivity, sort of like real kind of people person. And then I had less appreciation for sort of context and analytical. I think that comes with the positivity. I try not to look around too much at stuff that, but actually, particularly in a corporate environment, you really need that 360 of strengths. It's really powerful from a diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective. And I know also with your work, you go into corporates and you do this kind of thing. Can you talk about perhaps a bit in that environment, what you offer?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, one of the most important things at work is the social connection. If you do not have social connection with your team, with your boss, with your subordinates, your body does not feel safe at all. Like, you cannot feel safe with people around you that you don't know. The way our minds are wired is that we assume everybody is an enemy until we're proven otherwise. This is like a survival mechanism from like thousands of years ago. So what StrengthsFinder in a corporate environment does, it helps you to sit there in a group and go, oh, okay, so this is who I am, and that is who they are, and that is okay. They are different to me. Honestly, it's light bulb moments are going off throughout the thing, because you've got people there that don't value themselves at all, and they're like, oh yeah, my strengths are just this and this. And then you've got people on the same table going, that's what we love about you. You know, that's what makes you you. And helping people to see where they can maybe partner together. Like you mentioned, analytical is not one of your things. This is the same for me. Analytical for me is at the very, very, very bottom. So, yeah, it's as low as it goes. So, and this is a real example of when I had chronic pain. Pain that's mind-body tends to come and go. So throughout the year, I would have really, really bad back pain at budget time. So once a year, we would do the budget, which is all about numbers, presenting numbers. You know what it's like, because you've literally done this. You've been there. And I was, for that whole kind of 2-month period, let's say, of preparing the budget, presenting the budget, my whole body was a nervous wreck, because I'm being forced to use a strength that's not my strength. It's literally a non-strength for me. Every day I had to wake up and go and do something that doesn't light me up for 2 months. And everyone is expecting, well, you're a HR director, you should be amazing at this because it's in your job description, you know? And so the pressure I would put on myself was unbelievable. But then when you then do StrengthsFinder as a team and people are like, oh, okay, so we've got a HR director that doesn't have analytical in a top 5. Okay, let's have a look what she does have, you know? And then I'm on fire for like most of the year with the strengths I do have. And there's more forgiveness for what you don't have. And that's when I partnered with, I got a number 2 that had analytical. So I found a workaround, you know, but we can't be everything. It's unrealistic. And the minute I realized, oh, it's okay not to have analytical, even though it's in the job description. It's fine as long as I can present the budget. I don't need to be the one that crunches all the numbers hour after hour after hour, you know. That makes sense.
It does. And I think just from when you have a team that's strengths focused and organizations, they live and breathe it, I think it makes a huge difference to just the energy and the well-being, you know, and it's just, I just found it so powerful. And you know, when I resonate like completely with what you're saying, analytical, like finance, discipline, responsibility, all of those things that you would expect maybe someone in kind of a C-suite role to have, I actually lacked, but maybe not as strong, but unintentionally was using the strengths within the team. So I didn't feel that same stress, but you know, it's just, yeah, it's amazing, really. It's such a powerful tool, and it's nice to see how you use it both with individuals from the pain perspective and also kind of the wider team to create that harmonic structure for people to work within.
Yeah, it's a game changer for teams, but then it's magical when the people in the team that have been through it go home to their families, let's say, and they're like, this is who I am. And then they're discussing with their husband or wife or partner, or whatever. And then they very quickly realize they are different to their partner. You know, we often are attracted to the opposite strengths. And so even though you're doing this as a corporate thing, it ends up being a great marriage tool because you're just more forgiving. You're not even forgiving, but like super appreciative of the fact that your partner is different to you, and together you make an amazing team. So.
Yeah. Tell me how that plays out personally for you. I'm intrigued.
Oh, okay. I give you a funny example. I hope my husband does not mind me sharing this. But you know, we used to do long haul flights. We lived in Sri Lanka, and we would be flying from Sri Lanka to the UK. I think it was like 17 hours. And after a really long flight, I would, you would think after so long, the plane would land, doesn't matter an extra few minutes sitting there, you know, while everyone's getting off. But no, Chris is like up out of his seat, he's grabbing the bags and he's like, come on everyone, come on, follow me. And I'm running along with 2 kids and I'm like, what's the rush? Why do we have to get there? Like, well, I don't get it. That's because he has a maximizer. So maximizer is when there's a situation and you can make it even better. So if he can see something that can be even better, that's it. Like, we have to go. So I used to get really, really wound up by this. I'm like, the kids have been amazing for the last 17 hours. Why would we ruin it in the last 5 minutes, like racing to immigration or whatever? And another example with maximizer, I could cook dinner and I think it's amazing, put it in front of him and he'll be like, sure, it would be even better if we had carrots with this as well. And I'm like, oh God, there's no pleasing you. And I used to get really annoyed by this, like always trying to put the icing on the cake. But now I literally sit there and I'm like, I love your maximizer, you know, because that's great. And I'm not offended anymore because I know that's just who he is. And, you know, I could give you 1,000 examples of how annoying I am to him as well. But once you know who you are, you can also tame those things a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. I'm actually having a session with my husband this week on his strengths. Yeah, he hasn't done it before, so I'm excited to see. But I have maximizer and I do rush off the plane as well. He's like, come on, just chill. What's the rush? But I see people like gathering their bags. I'm like, well, they can't get off. What happens if they don't queue properly like me? So yeah, interesting to see how it plays out in everyday life. Can you talk to me a bit about, you know, what are your biggest success stories?
With clients in pain? Oh gosh, I have so many like little things that just make me smile, like when I think about them. I had a girl, like a young girl I worked with, actually very, very few sessions we had. And one of her things was she wasn't able to get pregnant. And just understanding the connection between the physical issues that she had wrong with her body that prevented her from getting pregnant and the emotional stress that she'd been through, she was able to kind of like list them all down and be like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And then within about, I think we did maybe 4 sessions or something, but by like the 2nd session, we'd already identified which family member specifically was the trigger for most of her repressed anger, because often chronic pain is to do with anger that we don't allow out. And in a safe environment, even if it's journaling and just say what you think and just get it out, then it's kind of like released, and acknowledging it can in many times just help to regulate the nervous system. And then this was before the very first few weeks of the pandemic, and then by the end of the pandemic she had a baby. So
that's incredible.
That was one of, and the reason I really like this story is because she was young and she's got the whole life ahead of her. And there's now this little human in the world that's there as a result of the work that we did together. So I love that story. But I have another client that's just ran her first half marathon, and when we started she couldn't run at all. Actually, she hadn't run for years, and now she started running and has done that. Gosh, I can't think now. So many. I've had insomnia is actually something that's to do with when your nervous system is like this. I had a client who literally was sleeping 2 or 3 hours a night. And again, we did only a few sessions. And by the end, she was sleeping straight through, because when her nervous system was calm, there's nothing, she could relax at night, you know, and it took a while for her to do it. But yeah, now I see her on Instagram all the time. She's a performer. And I'm like, it's amazing, like just to see people being the person they're supposed to be after the symptoms have gone. And then the other clients that I really, really love working with is where they've got kids, and when I can help them get better and I know the knock-on effect will benefit their family, I just love that. I just love that. Like I'm in my own pain journey. I'm so grateful I had the pain, because I am like a way better mum now. Way better, like 1,000 times better than I was free pain.
Yeah. It's just
So,
groundbreaking, really, isn't it? It's crazy that kind of the first time we spoke was really like the first time I'd heard about it. And I'm quite well read on stuff as well, you know. So the fact that, like, for
yeah,
me, I'm surprised and, you know, kind of work in this field as well. It's just,
yeah,
yeah,
it's amazing. In fact, this is probably one of my biggest issues. Like, I'll do a discovery call with someone, and then they're like, "Do you know what? The pain's a lot better now." And I'm like, "What?" Like, literally, just understanding it, which is great. It's great. That's how it's supposed to be. And one day they will teach this at school, and kids will
yeah.
grow up not being scared of pain, and then we won't get
Mm,
stuck in a pain fear cycle.
mm. No, I love it. Can you tell me, just on your website, I know you have an approach like kind of documented. Can people find that? And can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I have a little video of me talking through the questions that I would typically ask a client at the beginning. For example, do you have these types of personality traits? And they're all listed.
Hmm.
Did any of these particular things happen to you in childhood? And again, they're listed. It's just a video of me talking through the mind-body approach in a much more structured way than we've done today.
Mm,
And by the end of the video, people watching it, they should be able to go, do you know what? I probably have a mind-body condition, you know?
mm,
And if that like, this could be me, then you're going to be on the right path. Very quickly, you'll be on the right path. And either you just heal, or of course, I offer one-on-one coaching, and I'm soon to launch a membership as well. So there's different options. I also have loads of blog posts on there. So yeah, there's a lot people can do to get out of pain. Like, do not live in pain, regardless of what
yeah.
your doctor has said or what you believe or what your parents told you growing up. There's options now. Science has moved on so much in the last decade, but we're just very slow to catch up and tell the world
Hmm.
about it.
Well, it's incredible to think, and I really hope that anybody listening to this, you know, if they are either in pain or they know someone that's suffering, that it kind of flicks a switch and triggers something deeper into thinking about that, you know, maybe hold off going for medical intervention straight away and just sit with it and consider it. I mean, obviously, you know, you're not a doctor and neither am I, so careful of medical advice, but, you know, and when you said to me, if you broke your leg, then yeah, I would expect you to to get it fixed. I'm not
Yes.
saying that, but
Yeah.
I just really hope that this resonates with viewers, which it will, because you're amazing. You've explained it really articulately, but you know, help someone else on their pain journey.
Yeah. I think on that point, when you decide this is the route for you, you just need
Hmm.
to make sure that you've ruled out anything life threatening, you know, and a
Hmm.
physio or a doctor can help you do that. If you go to a doctor and say, I'm thinking of considering the mind body approach to healing, they can probably say, yeah, that you have nothing to lose, but they probably wouldn't be able to, you know, give you the steps or process to do it because they're not trained on that. You know, it's not
Hmm.
part of what they've learned themselves at school. So,
Mm.
um,
Interestingly, when I've spoken to a few personal trainers now, I've been back to the gym and they're like, everyone's like, how's your ankle? To make such a big deal out of it, not going for the last couple of months. I'm like, oh, you know, I spoke to a pain specialist and actually now I'm trying these other techniques. And they're like, yeah, good. You know, like you
yeah.
should do that before rushing for surgery. So clearly, kind of in the health and wellness industry, there is an appreciation for this approach and, you know, an understanding that it works.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, you're right. There's been a shift into this mindset now, especially since COVID. And in the
Hmm.
last few months, I've met some amazing people. We're here in Dubai. I've met some amazing medical professionals, osteopaths, who are so open to this that they're like, you know, we have clients that come time and time and time again,
Hmm.
always to have the same thing, and they're not getting better. Can we send them to you? I'm like, yes, yes, because it's not normal to have to keep going back just to have a bit of release. You know, like
Hmm.
that's not normal. Your body should be able to heal itself. And if it's not, and you're seeing the same physio over and over again forever and ever, then it's more likely to be a mind body thing.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so I've got two more questions, and one is around where people can find you, but I'll save that to close if you don't mind. But the other one is just, so the podcast call is called You've Got Game. It's all about people that have overcome some kind of adversity. And clearly, I've heard your story and I can see how you've done that very successfully. And now, actually, you're using that as your superpower to help other people. But can you describe to me how you've got game, or why you've got game? Is it how or why? Either.
Why I've got a game? Yeah, I think, you know what? I would have said I had game before all this happened. You know, I would have said, if you'd have got me in the corporate world, I'd be like, yeah, I work really long hours. I'm like super fast and I can get loads of stuff done and everything's amazing. At that point in my life, I would have categorized that as I've got game because it felt like I did. I was in a rat race that was really fun and addictive and like, ooh, like, you know how it is. Now I would say I've got game in a very different way. I've got game in a like, you know, like I'm going to work, but I don't have to work, you know, like I'm going to, you know, be with the kids and that's okay. Like it's really, really changed. And from a physical point of view, I have definitely got game now more than ever because I've just done my first half marathon. I've just swam around the Burj Al Arab on some big swimming event. I'm learning to unicycle. So many
saw
things.
that.
Like physically, I'm better now than I have ever been. If I see any kind of challenge come up, I'm signing up. You know, like I just want to prove what I can do with my body that I wouldn't have even done before. So yeah, physically, I have gain. Mentally, I have calm game, I guess, calmer game.
Excellent. You've definitely got game. You're 100% game, and you're putting me to shame. I need to sign. I'm the host, and now I need to sign up to more stuff. No, it's amazing, and I'm so glad you've come out the other side and you're doing something positive with it. It's just incredible. So, Gemma, thank you so much. But before you go, can you please tell us where the listeners can find you?
Yes, I have a website, which is just literally my name. It's Gemma McFall, Gemma with AG. I guess you'll post it with the video anyway. GemmaMcFall.com. You can get the free video on there. Drop me an email, call me, whatever. Like, don't live in pain. It's the main message. Don't live in pain. You don't have to.
Thank you so much. And look, for anyone listening, I can personally vouch. I think we only had like 1 hour together and I applied everything very literally, and it hasn't been, you know, it wasn't an extended pain period for me, but I mean, it's really worked and it's fundamentally changed what I'm able to do within a matter of days. So I'm forever appreciative. Thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, maybe there'll be a part 2 with us at some point. Thank you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks.